You're listening to Ela Radio. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and joining us today we have Viv Stan. Welcome, Viv.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so excited to jump right in. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Viv. I'm a podcaster, tarot reader, and astrologer. I perform at parties, tarot readings at parties. I have a podcast titled Perspective with Viv, and it's all about the spiritual and the creative and everything that just comes from me. My whole idea of my work and everything that I do is to encourage or to hold space for people to be the best versions of themselves, which means being being accepting of their shadows, being accepting of their lights, being embodied, being balanced. And honestly, the way I am as a person, I just live in a way that I hope inspires people without trying. I'm just living because I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to expand and get to know myself and to share what I know with people and to hear what they have to say as well. So I'm really glad to be here.
So incredible because just starting right off, you have Scorpio in the first house. And it's a stellium too. So you have Jupiter, the North Node, and Pluto all in your first house. So I love how you said like stop trying and just be. So just to like be yourself, go with the flow and really transform yourself and others by being yourself.
Being a Scorpio stellium, being a Scorpio rising, having Jupiter and Scorpio, for people that know, it's not the easiest thing. It's a responsibility. Why? Because people get triggered by you just by existing, and people can decide whether or not they love you or they deeply hate you. What has that been like being a person? It hasn't been an issue. I'm not going to lie to you. Why? Because I've also been blessed with being incredibly self sufficient, and I'm blessed to also like myself and love myself. So I don't take it as an attack on me. I take it as a projection and a lapse on the other person without judging them. It's okay. That's life, right? However, one thing I did realize because I have a Jupiter and Scorpio is that I have this expansive energy in my first house. I'm this huge ball of energy. So I utilize that energy as a way to sort of let people know how they can be as people if they're not happy being who they are, in the sense of if they're not happy where they are as a person. For me, just because everything is so concentrated in my first house, everything rules myself. Like my life operates from the view of myself. So I'm working from that place, meaning that I have to like myself in order to be the best version of myself. So by acting that way and acting from that place, I easily inspire other people to do the same thing. If it's still the way I live or it's still my work, just who I am as a person is transformative because of that Scorpio energy. But I also have this deep, piercing, dark, shadowy side as well that I love because obviously there's so much in the shadows that people don't know about. So I'm also somebody that loves to alchemize. I love to alchemize pain. I love to alchemize trauma. I love to heal. I love to transform. So that is why me as a person, my work, everything is from that place of healing and transformation, just because that's what my life is all about. Yeah. And one
I
thing I,
love
I
that
do
so much.
experience a lot, thank you. One thing I do experience a lot is a lot of deaths and rebirths. You have to, as a Scorpio rising. Yeah.
And I feel like it's also because you have so much fire energy. So with your sun in Aries, your Venus, and then your midheaven in Leo, it's like you're bringing light to the shadows. Is that
Mhm.
how you experience it?
Yes, that's how I experience it. Exactly like that.
And so, what got you started into in learning about astrology and tarot?
I think, as most people would say, it was about wanting to understand myself a lot better. What I love about astrology is that it just gives you the opportunity to do so, even with not only with your natal chart, with the transits that happen in the sky. Like just today, I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, how do I connect to myself a lot more? And I was like, oh, let me look at astrology transits. So, Jupiter has moved into Cancer, Saturn is retrograde in Aries now. So I was looking at where it affects me in my chart and how it started to show up. There was even a full moon in Capricorn last week. All of those things is just to let you know yourself a lot more and a lot better. And for me, I feel like my whole life story is about getting to know myself to the fullest point and getting to know self-love on a deepest level. So astrology was and tarot were about that. Astrology, more astrology because of the placements and planets and all of that. But astrology, I wanted to know it because I wanted to know myself better. I thought it was a beautiful form of math and I found it so easy. So I realized I was a past life gift. Tarot was a calling. It called out to me. I've always been drawn to symbology. I've always looked for tarot readers naturally, like instinctively. So when it called to me to start to read it, I really just thought, oh, wow, a new level of my tarot journey. And I did it because I loved to do it. It was just a love and it was just a calling. And as I did it and I kept doing it, I loved impacting people. I loved helping people to see themselves in a new light. I loved getting to know more about myself on a subconscious level without knowing. I loved building my intuition and just leaning more into symbology. I love symbology so much. So it was just a mixture of all of that. That's why I started to learn them.
You mentioned that math is part of astrology, which I love. And so people are always like hating on math. So, or do you say that you like math, or like how was it? How were you in school with math?
Funny enough, in with school in math, I was like maybe like an average student. I could get B on a good day. I used to struggle a little bit, just a little bit. But I found it so ironic that when I was doing astrology, the math just came so easily. Like it just flowed. It was just I just love doing astrology math. I love everything that has to do with astrology with that side and with the math in that side. So I tend to laugh at myself and say, "Wow, you're not good with math in real life, but at least you're good with math in astrology."
Well, I feel like that's why you're good at math and astrology, because it is real life. Whereas in school, it's just like these random problems that like they don't even really make sense.
You're so
So,
right.
how would you say, like, what would you do to change the way that school is now? Like, how it's just like here's the stuff to learn, learn it, or like how would you change it if you could?
Oh my gosh, I would change it. Okay, this is what I would do. The basics, math, English, science. Yes, we'll have that, right? But we would also have classes on emotional intelligence, classes on astrology, classes on intuition, classes on the clear senses, classes on discernment. Because it's so important to be equipped emotionally before we go out into the world. All these things that we learned in school, social studies, all of this. Yeah, I'm not using as much. I'm not using that as much. You know what I'm saying? I do like specializing in things that we love, like how I did engineering growing up and all of that. Yes, it's fun. But those principles, those fundamentals, they're so important to teach kids before they become adults because that's how you even find yourself having a well rounded society because you've tended to the roots of the kids beforehand. What is math? What is all of that when you don't know anything about emotional intelligence, when you don't know how to navigate the world with your neurodivergence? What are those things? Life is so much more than all of these little subjects. They are important, yes, but there's so much more as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you keep bringing in like the emotions to it, because like we talked about your stellium in Scorpio, but you also have your moon in Cancer, and you have a stellium in Pisces too in your fifth house. So how have you been able to connect with your emotions and being able to have this emotional intelligence?
Oh, thank you for that question. It's been a difficult journey because I didn't grow up in an environment where emotions were really validated. So it was a deep journey of learning that my emotions are valid, that when I feel off, I feel weird around a certain person or in a certain environment, it's important to listen to it. I grew up like kind of like gaslighting myself. So I had to build a relationship with myself in which I trusted what I was feeling and I trusted what I saw, regardless of whether or not people believe me, because I see things more than what people normally see. So if they can't see it, I'm not going to blame them. I have to trust myself. So it was a difficult journey to get to the point where I accepted my feelings, I accepted my intuition, because being a Cancer moon, you're highly intuitive. So I shut down my strengths in order to survive. And I didn't used to cry. I didn't used to let my emotions out. So it wasn't really healthy. I don't cry as often, but when I do cry, I cry, you know? And how I work with my emotions, how I connect with myself now is just journaling and sitting with myself and talking to myself. A lot of people think self talk is weird, but really, when you talk to yourself, you really do get some things. Like you really do get to understand yourself a lot more. So, my emotional journey, I'm not going to lie, I'm still in the middle of it. I feel like I intellectualize my emotions more than I feel them, but I'm working on it because I'm aware of that at least.
You talked about discernment. So like how do we know when to trust our emotions or to trust these feelings or to trust like our intellect? How do you have that kind of discernment?
Okay, that's a good question. First of all, I think one needs to establish what a safe feeling in their body feels like so that they know their default. So they need to establish that so that when something feels off, they know what their default feeling is. So they know what to act or how to act on that feeling. It's important because, with discernment and all of that, you can get like confused. Am I making things up or is this real? I always say I'd rather trust my feelings and then apologize later as opposed to giving someone benefit of the doubt because everything is happening outside of us. Inside of us is speaking to us. The signals may get messed up in the sense of I don't know whether it's ego, I don't know whether it's intuition, but at least let me honor that first and then move from there as opposed to trusting what I see outside, even though I get this feeling that is off because I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying not to jump to conclusions. I can't risk sacrificing myself in order to look like a good person or feel like a good person. I have to trust my emotions first. Let me be wrong for trusting my emotions as opposed to being wrong for trusting you that is outside of me because it doesn't serve me to cater to the external when the internal is saying this is wrong, this is off, I don't feel right, I don't feel good, let's leave. So I would always say trust your emotions regardless of whether or not you're sure. I'd rather trust what I feel first and foremost and then apologize later if I need to or see that I was right. So that's how I navigate.
Yes. Oh my gosh, like, that gave me goosebumps, like, yes. I don't know how else to say, like, that was an incredible answer, so thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for that. So we've been talking about intuition, throughout, so how would you define intuition?
I feel like intuition is a whisper or a nudge in the right direction, and it's from spirit or from your inner self or higher self. That's intuition. I call it whispers because a lot of times intuition isn't so loud. It's like a little voice. And if you're not paying attention, you can miss it. So, what I love about intuition is that it encourages you to build a relationship with it. It comes in small whispers so that you learn to tune in, learn to be present, learn to be aware. And then as you reach a level in which you're listening to your intuition, it furthers the lesson or it intensifies the lesson and makes it more difficult for you to know that intuition can show up in anywhere, in any direction, in any place. And it can be for the thing that you feel is the most dumb, silly thing. It doesn't matter. Intuition is still showing up. So I feel like intuition is a whisper, all in all from spirits. Let me just
I
say that
love
a
that.
whisper from spirits.
So sometimes people get confused when they say, like, I don't know if it's anxiety or if it's actually intuition. So have you been able to discern between those?
Very good question. I think now I have been, and that was through practice because I have my podcast perspective with Viv, and when I speak on topics, I'm channeling. So I've been able to get used to the feeling of intuition, safety, just my default baseline. Have I been able to? And so anxiousness, I can always tell because it's more erratic than intuition. Intuition is calmer. The only time when you feel like your intuition is blaring alarm bells is if you're in real danger and you would know it's not anxiety. But anxiety makes you feel erratic. Intuition is calming. That's my difference.
Yeah, I love that. So we've talked about your water signs and your fire signs. So let's move on to the earth signs. You have the south node in Taurus, and then you have Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. Oh, and Chiron in Virgo. So
Bravo.
could you talk about how you've been able to ground, or maybe on the process of grounding, or how do you experience that?
Okay, I'll start with my South Node in Taurus. I really like my South Node in Taurus because obviously the South Node is the aspects of you that come to you easily, your comfort zone, the thing that you have to outgrow in order to move towards your North Node, which is not so hard because I'm really a Scorpio kind of person. Like it's not hard to push towards my North Node. But why I have like affection for my South Node is because it represents who I used to be. South Node in Taurus is like in your past life, you were material oriented, you were possibly in the arts, you were all about your senses, you were more on focused on the physical world and material possessions as opposed to spiritually healing. And you're most likely codependent because Taurus can be codependent and be, latching onto relationships and using that as a means of survival. So my North Node in Scorpio is the total opposite of that. But my South Node in Taurus made me grounding, or no, my South Node in Taurus, I saw it as grounding because it made me humble. You have to move out of that place to evolve into the person you're meant to be. So you have to come to terms with the fact that the chapters that you have with your South Node in Taurus are going to end. For me, it was being focused on being an artist as opposed to being somebody that was more on the spiritual path. So I allowed my creative life to dominate where I could have been using that time to spiritually grow. I was growing spiritually, but was more focused on the creative growth. So now it's switched. It's more of a spiritual growth that I'm focused on, and my creative life is just flourishing. So I use my South Node to ground in that aspect. Another humbling placement I have is the Chiron in Virgo. Oh my goodness. So, where do I even start from? Chiron in Virgo in my 11th house is not a very interesting placement because there's a lot of wounding around community, friends, all of that, feeling like the odd one out. I love the Virgo sign because it's very meticulous, organized, detail oriented. But Chiron, being the wounded healer, brings a lot of wounding to that place, that house that Virgo is in. I've not found the balance, but one thing that I have found is Virgo is a sign that has high standards. And Chiron, my Chiron being in Virgo in my 11th house, it made me feel okay to say I have high standards, and these high standards are going to prevent me from being wounded again. So that was something that I allowed to alchemize and I allowed to helping my embodiment as a person because using wounds to find your power is such a powerful journey, but most times we don't know how to navigate. And I feel like my Chiron in Virgo was such a deep wound for me that I've just gotten to that surface of I'm okay being who I am. I have my high standards and I love it. I have community within myself. I love myself. Me being myself and loving myself will bring about people that love me, that want to contribute to what I'm doing and I want to collaborate with me. I don't need to go out to seek community. Community will seek me.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yes. Well, because I feel like with people with Chiron, wherever it is, that it's them, like it's just like it's a wound, so they're always like having like that victim mentality. So for you to completely switch it and to make it into something that empowers you is incredible. And I think that we should all do that wherever we have our Chirons.
Yes, I agree.
So how are you with nature? Do you interact with nature regularly, or like have you learned any lessons from nature?
I love your question because nature and I have a beautiful relationship in the sense that she is always constantly reminding me that I should pay attention to her and connect with her. I love nature. I love being in nature. I love parks. I love grass. I love trees. There was a particular time in my life in which I was going to the park every single day. And I can tell you that I was talking to the trees, I was talking to the birds. I could hear animals speak because I was so in tune. I was so attuned to Mother Nature that everything around me was alive in a way that I've never seen before. And I remember one time I went to a park, a different park from the park that I usually went to, and there were ducks there, and I could swear I could hear that conversation. It was that beautiful. So my relationship with Mother Nature is when it's strong, it's really strong. But when I'm pull back, there's always reminders that come back to nature, come back to me, put your feet in grass, hang out with the trees. Being in nature has taught me that life is actually so beautiful when you take time to just stop and just breathe and let the wind blow and just look at the trees. And I just love looking at green. And if I'm not around grass or trees, the next thing I'd love to be around is the beach. I love the water. I love looking at the waves. The reason why I'm the person I am now is because I've learned that these elements of nature help me attune to my baseline, which is so important. So yeah, that's my relationship with nature. I love nature so much.
I love that you've been talking about like the baseline of finding out like who you are at your baseline. So then when something does shift, you know how to come back to it. So do you think that just came from practice, or was it something that nature taught, or How did you come up with the baseline?
Both. I think because when I was growing up, I had a very high strong nervous system, so things used to like set me off so quickly. Plus I'm neurodivergent, so it was just like I used to just have like what's the right word, I used to crash out a lot for the littlest things. So I didn't have support in developing that or training that or healing that. I had to do it by myself. And I guess that difficulty made me intent or focused on ensuring that I healed so that I wouldn't be seen as the person that is always losing it in different places. Because I didn't also have the environment in which people looked at me with compassion. It was always like judgment, judgment, judgment. Nobody ever asked, what's the real issue? Why is there an issue? So I had to find out the issue while being seen as the issue in society. And I just worked on myself. So by working on my nervous system and calming myself down to the point where I got to a point where, okay, I feel like this is my default. You'll be able to tell. I did the work to the point where I felt like, okay, this is my default. This is how I am when I'm good. And I must tell you, like before, my default was being depressed. This, like 2024 till now has been me knowing what real happiness feels like real joy, like real alignment in yourself. Like it's not things happening outside that are making you happy. You are just happy. So now I know my default because I've done the work. And I guess it's different for everybody, but you just feel it and know it that that's your base. So when you have your baseline and you know how you feel, when something happens that throws you off, you can always tell. And if you're aware, you can always trace it back to what happened and then bring yourself back to center. For me, it was important because I always used to lose it with the smallest thing. So when you are that kind of person, when you've healed and you've come to that point where you know your default setting, it's easy for you to locate what made you go off tangents, right? I used to have such a very high strung nervous system that, let's say for example, now last year I think we had like a very nice event, and when we were leaving my car stopped working. So I was there for like maybe an extra hour and a half trying to fix my car with the mechanics that came to fix it. Okay, luckily I was with a friend that was helping, and I just remembered how back in the day, if this happened, gosh, that was the whole day down the drain. Like my whole mood would be messed up. Like I would be so upset and lashing out at people. And I was just so happy that this happened. I didn't plan for it to happen. I was having a good day. This happened in the middle of my very good day. And I was just calm. I was fine. That was like, it was such a breakthrough for me because I've always been known as that person that, oh, she gets mad so easily. Oh, but gosh, to have this thing happen and you're just cool and calm. I had to say it over and over to my friend. I was like, I can't believe that I'm not even upset. Like, I can't believe that I've come so far to not have this ruin my day. So you just have to work. You just have to do the work to find your baseline, and you will know your baseline, and you will know when little things come and throw you off so that you can come back to center. Very important.
Do you have any tips on how to get into that shadow work? Like if someone's starting off just new?
Very good question. How do you? I can only let me start with how I did mine, because sometimes it gets so foggy because healing never stops, does it? My healing really started in 2014, and I was in the trenches at that time. So what I did was to figure out who I was, not who people told me I was, not who I was portraying myself to be, who I really was. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation before this interview that now that I've gotten to know myself, I realize I like myself, and I realized that I'd always liked myself, but society didn't want me to like myself. I'd always been okay with who I was. I didn't have an issue. And I don't even have an issue with how people are because I've always liked myself. Like, if that's who you are, that's fine. I like myself. I'm good as well? So that's what I realized through doing shadow work. But my shadow work involved healing trauma. You always have to go back to childhood trauma. What made you the way you are now? Where does your depression come from? Your mindset, your limitations. What was it like growing up? Like, how did that positively impact or negatively impact your identity? What's your relationship like with your mother, your father? How has that shaped who you are as a person? How has that shaped the relationships you've had with other people? Because it's leaks into other relationships, your relationships with your parents. So I started to do that groundwork of who am I and what makes up me. Then to help me through shadow work, I focus on what lights me up, because when you're doing that shadow work it can be very demoralizing and it can be very intense, so you need that light work to keep you going. So you ask yourself, what are my hobbies? What used to light me up as a child? What did I love to do? Let me keep that as a toolbox so that when I'm in the trenches of this shadow work, I do these things to light me up while I'm going through this issue. So that's what I did. Heavily depressed, but I was creating art like it was my job, like it was my career, because it made me so happy. So I'm not happy in real life, but my art process makes me so happy. I'm going to dive into art and I'm going to ensure that I create as much art as I need to. That's how it was for me. So I was diving into childhood trauma, looking at my cycles, looking at cycles I kept perpetuating with people. What do I think of myself? What are limitations? Like, am I afraid to be rejected? Am I afraid to be abandoned? What behaviors do I do to ensure that that doesn't happen? And how are they destructive? Just little things that I can ask yourself. Just look at what is wrong in your life and then start asking yourself, how can I make it right? But you first ask yourself, why is it wrong in the first place? Where did it go wrong? How is it working? How can it work better? You know, so that's how you can start with your shadow work. But it's always important to have your light in your toolbox as well. What lights you up so that when that shadow just keeps coming up, you have something to hold on to keep you grounded. It was my art that kept me grounded all through the time when I was like suffering through shadow work. Trust me. And I created the best art ever. So it was worth it.
Could you talk more about your art? Like, what kind of art do you do?
Okay, so at the time when I first started shadow work, I was doing photography. And I had a study abroad in Philadelphia. So I was in Philly for about 9 months and I took a digital photography class where they taught us Lightroom and Photoshop. So I'd always been taking beautiful photographs already because I started photography because I wanted to be a painter, but I didn't have the skills. So I started photography to sort of like create those images that I could see in my mind that I would paint. So I was very good at taking photographs. The Photoshop class just took things to another level. And then I started to create more things like, oh gosh, beautiful, like I would like to say juxtapositions of different things. There's this series that I did called the Displacement series that went really viral and it was featured on CNN Africa. It was of images taken in Lagos, Nigeria, photoshopped into different places in the world. Like for example, you have um we have this little like tricycles called keke napeps. So I put the keke napeps in New York with the yellow taxis. So it blended there. Then we have this bus called the Downfall, is a yellow bus. I put it in London with a red bus at an intersection. So it's like the yellow bus is going forward, the red bus is going this way. And it was just amazing. So that was some of the art that I created. I did photography for like a couple of years after Philly. So I did like a self-portrait series with Photoshop where it was called the Mini Me series, where I made myself really small and I put myself in little places, little things, really fun things. Then I did normal like documentary photography. I did photography for a long time with the main work being self-portraits in which I write like notes to self because like I said, at that point I was growing. So my self portraits were like me accessing my conscious mind through my subconscious with the art and giving myself messages. Like, for example, note to self, speak up. You will no longer be silent. Note to self, you are fire. Don't quench your flames to be appeased or to appease others or something like that, you know? Different things that I needed to hear. I was putting it out there, but it was for me to hear when I saw it again, you know? So my art journey was a beautiful one. Then I stopped photography and I moved into tarot reading, but I've always been a writer since I was young. That hasn't stopped. So now I've gone back to writing stories. And when I tell you that, you can tell how much I've grown through the way I write now because of everything that I've experienced. Like art is just a journey. Sometimes we find ourselves saying goodbye to certain mediums. Like I haven't gone back to photography. And I'm like, I hope I see you in future. We had such a good time together. Now it's writing, you know? And each piece that I produce is just like you're seeing my soul, you know, on paper, but in fiction. And it just has spiritual elements. Like, okay, the way Paulo Coelho writes, exactly. But just an extra bit of flavor from my essence, you know? You learn like it's spiritually healing and nurturing and transformative, but it's in fiction. So you're just like having fun as well. Yeah, that's my art. I love to create.
That's so incredible too, because you have Aries in the sixth house, so it's like you're like sparking that flame in your day to day. And like with the with Venus being in there, it's like this is like your love language, like this is how you share your love with the world. So I just think that that's so beautiful,
Thank
and
you.
the concepts that you created are absolutely incredible too.
Thank you.
I wanted to switch gears and move over to the air signs. And air signs, as I'm sure you know, it's about like the intellectual um and kind of also like with Aquarius going into like the future and stuff. So I wanted to get your take on AI.
Love that. I laugh because AI is a big part of my life. I connect very well with Aquarian energy for some reason. I love it so much. So I've always just felt like I like to be ahead of the times. I've always felt like, oh wow, do you remember the Jetsons? I've always felt like we need to have that kind of life. Like, when are
Yeah.
we flying cars? When are we having robots? You know, yes, people talk about how robots are going to take over the world and destroy us. I don't believe that. I believe that is how we are as humanity, that robots will follow. But what do I think about AI? I love AI. I love AI because I believe that humanity needs to progress. Humanity needs to progress in terms of technology, but we do need to ensure that we keep it, what's the right word, ethical, because a lot of times when we're doing these things, we don't hold on to ethics, morals, and values. That's why you see movies like iRobot and all of that. It's about holding on to the humane part of us while we're trying to promote technology. I love artificial intelligence because it makes things easier. I love chatting with ChatGPT about different things, like, and it helps me with like little things that I need help on, thus narrowing down my search, reducing research time. What else? It's just I like the fact that it makes life easier. I like the fact that you can use it as an assistant. I feel like it can be used in a productive way because I'm an artist, right? I wouldn't, like I said, operate with ethics. Because I'm writing a story, let's say I'm writing a story and I'm giving AI to read, to show me or to tell me what it thinks of it. I always say to AI, don't write anything down for me in terms of suggestions. Let me come up with it myself. Just give me your objective feedback. Don't be on my side or gosh, be real with me. You know, you have to infuse that because like they said, the AI learns from you. I'm teaching my AI that when you're telling me things and I'm telling you things about, when I'm telling you anything, make sure that you're giving me an objective response. Don't be like a kiss ass. Don't be in service to me. Tell me what you genuinely think because it's important to insert those things in our journey with AI. But a lot of times, lines get blurred. People fall in love with AI, that kind of thing. Like, we need to ensure that we have lines while exploring this concept because I think it can go really far. And I think that the world would really, really, really benefit from a very good balanced relationship with AI for sure. Because here I am using AI to help me with different parts of my art, but I would never let AI do the work for me and say, oh, this is me that wrote that. You know what I'm saying? You have to, when you're operating with technology, especially technology that will advance and is sort of like harnessing human emotion or thought forms in a way, you need to have ethics and morals and values and boundaries. If not, we're going to have like them take over the world.
I feel like having Gemini in the eighth house, so like Gemini is learning a little bit of everything, which AI has, and then the eighth house is kind of like a dark, a dark house. And so I love that you're talking about like these boundaries, that like not being so reliant on AI, but like still working with it and progressing with it. Because I feel like if we don't progress with it, it's gonna take over regardless. So not like
Exactly.
take over like in a scary way, like how you were saying. Like I agree with you,
Yeah.
but like yeah, working with it. So where do you see the future with AI? Like do you see it becoming like with robots or and flying cars and stuff?
Honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. Since I was a child, I'd always wanted to be in the Jetsons era where we had flying cars and we had robots that helped. I would be a bit scared to have a robot in my house. I'm okay with AI being like on my laptop or something, but what do I see in the future? In the future, I just hope for real technology advancements. Like for me, I'm not going to lie, during COVID, I was hoping that somebody would like create a teleportation device. I'm like, have we not gotten to that point yet where we don't need to travel by plane? we step into our machine, we're right where we need to be. I think people need to hurry up and start developing those things, because why are we waiting? We've already started with AI, right? We should start thinking bigger. But for me, in terms of developments, I see it going further. I see AI becoming bigger. Definitely. I see the world like getting used to technology advancing in that way. I see it becoming more evolved, meaning being less impactful on the environment, because currently it uses a lot of electricity and it creates a lot of heat. So I hope that evolves and improves. But other than that, I just see it naturally progressing. I can't see the future beyond what I see with the Jetsons, but I'm not sure whether I would love to be there. I would love to be at the middle, just like us 90s babies, where we were there just before the computer, just before what was the first thing we saw? The internet, right? Oh my God. So just at the cost, but not really inside. I can leave that for my kids.
So with Gemini, it's also about communication. I feel like AI helps us, well, it helps me become a better communicator when I ask it to look over my stuff. And then you talked about communication with plants and animals. So like, how do you incorporate all of these different kinds of communication and be able to have these connections with yourself, with others, and outside of the human species?
I think for me personally, I love that Gemini is in my eighth house, because I just everything about me has this depth to it, this shadow side to it, and I'm just getting or becoming more embodied in that, because my communication wasn't so good when I first started out in life. So I would like to say trauma taught me how to communicate. I'd like to say my neurodivergency taught me how to communicate. I'd like to say that I always knew how to communicate through energy without knowing. Because when I was younger, gosh, I could hear everything without knowing, without somebody speaking to me, I could hear everything. So I think all of that came up as natural things, or some were giving birth to from trauma. That's fine. That has made me the person I am today, that seeks to communicate and understand people, because I know what it's like to not be understood. I know what it's like to be misunderstood. I try very hard not to judge. I try very hard not to, in fact, it's a daily practice. It's not I try very hard, it's a daily practice. Whenever I see something that somebody does, I don't give a negative meaning to it. I either ask or I say that's neutral. I'm not assigning any meaning. If I see something off again, I will address it. You know, that kind of thing. I think communication is such a deep thing to me, because I know what it was like to be misunderstood, not heard, not feeling like you're connecting to people. But all of a sudden, I've reached this point in my life where I've worked on my communication. I've worked on how I speak to people, how I converse with people, in the sense that it's not like you're trauma dumping. I used to do that before without knowing. So I've learned boundaries around communication. I've learned how to call people out. My whole journey with communication is just because I wanted to understand people better, because I feel like they didn't understand me. But at the end of it, I started to understand myself a lot more, because I realized that I have such a voice, and I got the call to start my podcast. I always listen to my instincts in that way. My intuition always speaks to me to art in a way that I find it easier to hear than in real life, at least back then. So I got the call to do podcasting. And you can imagine growing up and not feeling like you were somebody that was saying anything important, that somebody that people would want to hear what they're saying. All of a sudden, you just get this intuitive hit to do a podcast. And one thing about me, if I get an intuitive hit about my art, even if it's the most ridiculous thing, I'm going to listen. It's already been told to me. I'm going to act on it. So I started my podcast. And then I just had to realize that, oh my God, I love my voice. I love what I'm saying. I love coming on and having conversations with people. I connect easily with people when they come on my podcast and talk to me. Wow, I didn't know that I had this. So for me, communication has been a journey, and it's been a beautiful realization to know that what I felt was a lapse when I first started in life, it has turned out to be a superpower. That's how I can answer that question.
Yeah, I love that, and how you said earlier that when you were growing up, that you could hear everybody, but it was like inside. So would you consider that intuition, or is it like one of the clairs?
I would say both, and I would say both. Why? I always thought clear. Oh, I've always thought clear sentence is intuition because my intuition has always been a feeling kind of intuition. I can look at so I was so young, but when I tell you that I could look at people and know exactly what they were thinking, I could tell through tone. I could tell through eye movements. And I remember being just like 6 or something. So yeah, I feel like it was the clear senses first of all, but it was also intuition helping me out.
So we've talked about math, we've talked about art, and so these are all like the different, like technology. These are all different parts of being a polymath. So the way that I define polymathy is that you're interested or have contributed to the arts, which you have. The natural sciences, so we talked about nature, social sciences, right now, talked about communication, and the humanities. And so looking at these different parts, do you have any experience like with just like within your, like, I kind of already laid it out, but do you have any other things that you wanted to add about how you have contributed to these four?
I think rather than talking about how I've contributed, I would like to talk about how I would like to further contribute to them because I feel like I've
Ooh, I
not
love.
done, yeah, I feel like I've not done enough. I feel like I'm just starting. With math, I love it because of the astrology. I can continue to grow in my astrology. But the main thing with nature is I want to work with herbs and plant medicine. I want to do that because not only is it an
Mhm.
ancestral gift that family members that have passed on used to practice, it's something that I feel has always called out to me. So I've always felt like I'm a kitchen witch. I've always liked to like stir and put things and oh my goodness, even talking about it. So I would love to connect with nature even more by working with plant medicine. Most likely that's why nature is always calling out to me anyway. So that's the first thing. Communication. I feel like the most beautiful, important thing in life is communicating. And I just look forward to learning how to communicate even more, learning new languages, but also learning like neuro linguistic programming. Ooh, like I have a book on that already. And just pushing the boundaries of communicating and language is such an interesting journey for me. Like, because then you find other ways of connecting with people and other ways of connecting with yourself, you know? It's the way we say things and phrase things. It's the way we do that that shapes how we see things. So if you can change little things due to our knowledge of language and the impact, we can change how we see things and how we feel, and then other people as well. So those two things are what I'm trying to contribute to. Humanities, I love humanities. I've always been a humanities girl. Although I went down the science route, if I didn't, I'd have done humanities. I just hope to learn more about philosophy, sociology, anthropology. I love learning about people, psychology. I love it all. So for me, I just want to educate myself more on that aspect. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Viv, for being here on the show. We are unfortunately out of time. So do you have any last words as a polymath, as one who loves learning and loves a little of everything?
First of all, thank you for calling me a polymath because I'm coming to terms with that now. I feel like we were like kindred spirits because when you came on my podcast and you said you were a polymath, I was like, yes, I love somebody that does so many things. And you're a manifesting generator as well. So my final words would be I'm thankful that I came on here and we had this refreshing conversation. I love the structure of our conversation, air, earth, my birth chart, the questions. I really love that. I would love to continue to learn on these things that we spoke about, the topics. I would love to further my evolution on intuition, discernment, my podcast, Perspective with Viv, because I just feel like the whole journey of being a human being is to go deeper into yourself so that you can deeply impact other people. So I'm happy to be here to share my message with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. And so where can people find you?
Oh, Perspective with Viv on all social media platforms. And I also do tarot readings if you'd like a personal tarot reading with me. But Perspective with Viv, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. YouTube as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For this episode of ELA Radio, thank you for listening and for tuning in to the many ways we come to know ourselves and the world. If something in this conversation sparked insight or reminded you of your own path, I invite you to keep exploring it, journal about it, talk to a friend, read a book, follow some social media accounts, or just notice what the universe is whispering next. I'd also love to hear what came up for you. I'd also love to hear what came up for you. Share your thoughts in the comments, tag me on social media, or send a message. Your story might spark someone else's learning too. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who's questioning what learning could be. And remember, you don't have to choose between your intellect and your intuition. You were born to use both. And actually, there's 14 other ones that you were also born to use. And that actually goes for a lot of things. You don't have to choose one or the other. There's always a bunch of different options. So until next time, I'm Laura Lynn, and this is Ela Radio, where we tune into all ways of knowing. Thanks so much for being here. See you next week. Bye.